And we are live.
Tweeting.
We're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, world. Except,
Hello.
can anyone see us?
I don't know.
I think it's not.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. Okay.
I can
It's
see
on.
a little bit.
I can see.
Okay,
I can
let's
see
get
us.
started.
I can see you. You can see me. That's all we need.
Yes, and everyone.
We're a
can hear
happy
everyone.
family.
Yes. So, welcome everybody to our Global Democracy Forum of the HPA, and we're going to be discussing local politics and how those differ in all our different countries, and fun Harry Potter stuff because we are the Harry Potter Alliance after all. And you can follow along on our Facebook, our YouTube, and Twitter. All of it should be #GloboHPA. And yes, I guess I'll start. I am Marcela. I'm the international liaison. I'm currently in Brazil, and I am only a year younger than the Brazilian Constitution because it was from October of 1988. So that's fairly new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go next, I think. So yeah, we thought it would be cool to like introduce, instead of like name, age, location, do like your name and your age and location by how much older or younger you are than your constitution, just like to see that things have not always been, like the world did not come into being with the political systems that are everywhere today. So mine are, like, my name is Hilda. I am also one of the international liaisons. And I am 180 years younger than the constitution of my country. So yeah, the constitution of the Netherlands came to be in 1815, so.
Wow. Hard to follow that because that's a long time. But my name is Maggie. I'm also an international liaison, and I am in Canada, and I am only 10 years younger than the Canadian Constitution, which was actually, we had the British Constitution since like 1867, and then in 1982 we got our own one. So I'm 10 years younger then. There we go.
That's complicated. I'm Kripa from India, and our constitution came into effect in January of 1950. So I'm 46 years younger than our constitution.
That's pretty old.
Yeah.
That's
The Constitution, not you.
Good.
You are
Yeah.
you are a little baby.
I'm the baby. Yeah.
And Carolina.
So I'm Carolina, and yes, I'm Carolina, and I'm a chapter organizer for the Buenos Aires chapter of the HPA. And I'm originally from Brazil, but I live in Argentina. And I'm actually 12 years older than the Constitution of Argentina, which was August 22nd, 1994, and 4 years older than the one in Brazil. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So I mean, the reason that we thought it would be cool to introduce ourselves in regards to the age of our constitutions is because we just tend to think that, oh, this is how things are and this is how things always were. You know, we can be very self-defeating when it comes to political participation. So we thought that realizing that things are very new some places and things are not very new in other places can be a good push in that direction. For example, so Hilda's, we were just discussing it before, although the Constitution itself is very old, I'm sure there are several amendments that were done, so, you know, change is possible regardless of how old your government has been in place. And then the other reason we thought it would be interesting to introduce that is that sometimes the political participation is hard because your government is so new. So, you know, you could have people a generation above you that lived in a completely different environment than what you did. So, you know, you see it in the Harry Potter series. Harry is only 11 years older than, let's say, the new magical constitution. In the time that he was born, the Wizarding World was in a completely different situation than they're currently in now. So that was what we try to bring home with those cute little facts.
Yeah.
We now have 7 people watching. Hi, 7 people.
Hello, 7 people. Tweet
Although
at us.
I'm thinking, yeah, use hashtag global HPA.
Yes, we're all watching.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things.
In the YouTube comments as of right now, by the way.
Yes.
So people,
one of the things that I wanted to start off with, since I already went on my little political participation tirade, is political self-care, which I think is greatly, greatly important. It's something that I feel myself all the time, because if you are an informed and conscious person in today's world, you know that there's a lot of things that are not ideal. We'd like to think maybe the world is currently a dumpster fire. So it can be very daunting, and then depending on the type of news you're getting, it is really daunting. So the type of things that I like to do for myself, and I encourage my fellow live streamers to chime in as well, but things that I try to do is to look for positive political news. So I try to seek out people that are doing good stuff. I try to find organizations that are combating the very thing that I just read about that made me upset. And, those exist, even though, media does kind of thrive on bad and scary news. There are people doing good things out there. Another thing is that I try to remind myself of the things that I am doing, because even though I'm just one person, there's lots of things that I do and can do to make things better. Educating myself on what's going on is just one of them. But as small as they are, I am doing things. And then I try to come up with even more things that I can do to make it better. So it can be just a tiny change. And let's say I read something about a company that is supporting slavery. For example, the HPA had a whole campaign about how the Harry Potter chocolates were not fair trade. So I, as an individual, and we as an organization, decided that we were not going to purchase those chocolates anymore. So that's a small thing, but it is still something that I can do immediately in response to the bad news that I'm getting all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's my self-care.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I really do, because the world can get you down in these current political times that we are in. Even though I'm obviously in Canada and I'm very happy with our state of government right now. Other places in the world I'm not as happy with, so it's important to be educated about it. And yeah, just take care of yourself, if you get really overwhelmed the way I know I certainly can. I can just be how is this happening? How, I don't understand. And I can get really overwhelmed by it. So when Marcella brought up political self-care, I was that should be something more people are talking about, because I know I'm not alone in getting really overwhelmed by all of it.
One thing that I feel is I get very confused about what's going on and what to think and what to feel. So I try to find non-partisan sources and objective sources that aren't biased towards candidates or towards ideas. So they let you form your own ideas based on just the facts and the information. So I think that's also a pretty important thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that whole what Marcella does of looking for people going against the things you're saying that are scary. I think it's also really helpful to just start a discussion with I think it's super helpful to just be to somebody else, have you seen this? How bananas is that? Just to start discussions about it with your friends or whatever. Oftentimes we just we have a group chat of the global team here in the HPA, and we'll throw in a link of did you see that this thing happened in Turkey last week? And we all just kind of get angry about it. And even though it's not terribly productive to scream into a chat group, it is it is still good to have those discussions, because it can lead to action if you do it well. And it's also just good as a method of self-care, like Marcella said.
I really love that we're starting with that. Thank you, Marcella, for bringing that up, because that's definitely really important. For me, for example, when I studied international relations and sociology in college, And it became really so overwhelming that after I graduated, I literally stopped watching the news for like a year. And that's obviously not the best way to do things, but I was really completely at like capacity, basically. So the self-care idea is really, really important. And one thing that I do as well is for things that are good news, like HuffPost has like their good news section that's good to follow, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has all the time, they're always sharing information about how much better the world is now than it used to be, and that tends to be really, really uplifting for me. And then another thing is just sometimes just not going online for a while and doing a little bit of a fast. That's really good for me as well. Just kind of take a break from it because it's like a barrage of information. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that what you said, that is the whole reason why that even occurred to me. I also studied international politics, and I've just finished a master's last year. And there was one day that me and my friends were all just sitting in the library doing our dissertations. And we're already so down from the fact that, it's a dissertation is a hard time. We're all like scrambling a lot. And then we sat down and it's like, oh, what's your thing on? It's like, oh, child soldiers in Sudan. And I'm like, so it's already really heavy. And then you go to read about that stuff and you go write about that stuff. So we were all like really down. There was like this dementor aura around us in the library. And that's when I'm like, okay, I need to go read who's being awesome right now, who's doing something really great to fight all these other things, because it was just like, it's so much to take on just for yourself. So take care of yourself.
Conjure.
Yes.
Have some chocolate.
Yes. So one of the things, since we're talking about this, and it's amazing that you brought up the point that I was hoping somebody did, which was Hilda, to talk to other people. We have a session that I really wish I had like special effects for this because I love it, and it's called "The Ministry of Magic is a Shit Show."
We could do something. We have
exactly
stars.
Should have worked on that before.
Yes.
But yes.
Next time.
So one of the things
is indeed a dumpster fire.
So it is one of the things, and you see people like Hermione who are reading the Daily Prophet and are reading between the lines and discussing the things that are happening, but you don't really see anybody else in the Harry Potter world doing that. A lot can be because we do get the books from Harry's perspective, and since he's not doing that, he kind of ignores it. But so there's several things that I personally highlighted. And I don't know if anybody has a specific point that they would like to bring up first. But one of the ones that really gets my goat is the fact that mental torture is institutionalized and widely accepted. We have the Dementors, and that is the form of punishment. So it's not even like, oh, when you're really bad, this is what happens to you. So in the world that we have, where torture is so unacceptable, we just kind of read those, especially when I was 13 or 11, I think I was by the time Prisoner of Azkaban came out. It was just something that I was like, prison, whatever. And then the more you think about it, I was like, wait, that's not just prison. They're not just being locked up. They're being tortured while being locked up.
24/7. And also just like, you have to remember that a lot of the people who were in there had not like gotten a proper fair trial. Like I think like it was just like Fudge just showed up and was like, oh, we're taking Hagrid to Azkaban, and that just happened. It's just like, on a visit to Hogwarts, I'm taking Hagrid to Azkaban.
I mean, and he specifically says to boost morale. He's like, we know it's not you, but to boost morale, we need to get rid of you, Hagrid.
Yeah, let's torture this human being as a means to an end.
Yeah.
It's really, really terrifying.
And I
guess not human being, but like human giant.
I mean, the whole Azkaban prison system is just really messed up. Like, aside from the torture, it's all solitary confinement. Like, you can't tell me they have activities planned in I can't see the Dementors being like, okay, like prisoners,
Yeah.
choose a
Arts and
job.
crafts.
There's no hope for like
Yeah, I mean, well, the
getting
Dementors
back
can't
into
even
society. Or
communicate. Yeah, they're not.
I don't even
planning
think
to
they even
connect.
have like the sunshine hour, because you've seen like TV. They always have like the 1 hour of daylight that they're like. I don't think they have that in Azkaban.
Yeah, they
Pretty
have
sure
a
they
real
do.
vitamin D deficiency.
No, I don't. I think even if they were allowed outside, there's too much fog from the Dementors that wouldn't even.
Yeah,
But anyway,
And
that's besides
Azkaban
the
is for
point.
life. There's no like shorter sentences, right? It's like life or nothing.
Yeah, I don't know.
see, I don't know.
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, because if
I mean,
it
but
isn't
if
just
anyone
for
got
life,
out, wouldn't they be too messed up to actually just
exactly,
reintegrate into
they
society?
couldn't.
So,
Yeah, they couldn't lead a productive life after that.
so it's got to be life for nothing.
Yeah, and a
So,
lot of people
like,
get sent
yeah.
there without trial. Let's not forget Sirius
Yeah.
and
Sirius.
Advent.
The
Yeah.
worst use of like wizard investigation I can imagine. Like,
Yeah, because one thing is, when I brought up this point, I think Hilda did that, because you brought this point up that that is a thing that exists in cases of emergencies. You can send people to jail without trial. That is a thing that exists all over the place. But the thing is, Harris was there for 12 years. At some point, it was no longer an emergency, and then he should have gotten a trial, even though he was already imprisoned.
Yeah, maybe we should like explain that whole thing of like state of emergency, because there's this thing like states can kind of be, I guess, defined as well, like the authority within a specific, region or within certain borders. And I think like one of the main attributes of a state or a government is that they kind of have the monopoly on like legal violence. So they get to throw people into like torturous Dementor spaces. And like the thing is that they get away with much more in a state of emergency, like in a state of war, or in a state of financial crisis as we are in right now. You see that people in countries have to accept certain measures that they wouldn't be able to accept, or that they would just flat out refuse in times of non-crises. So unless there's a war, like you can capture people and throw them in prison during a war because they're like political prisoners or whatever, or like budgets are cut on things that are very important all over the place because this is an emergency financial crisis, blah, 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 blah. So that is kind of the whole like emergency thing for people who want a background on that. But yeah, for sure. He was in there for 12 years, so the emergency had long passed. And
yeah. And also, is there any, like, there's no appealing system? Like, you can't appeal your verdict if you even did have a trial. Like, they don't have, like, do the wizards that are being prosecuted have counsel? Like, I'm unclear on that.
I mean,
Dumbledore
spoke to Harry, but that was not like an Azkaban level.
Yeah, and in all the other, that's a really good point, Maggie. I never actually thought about this, but in the trials that we see in Dumbledore's memories, so Barty Crouch, Bellatrix, and I think there's another one that we do see, they don't have counsel. They basically get to sit there, defend themselves, they defend themselves or not, and that's it. So if you don't have a magical law degree, which you probably got in Hogwarts. I mean, no.
I guess
No.
Is that a
whole
thing?
other?
That's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah. Studying law or something.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other discussion that we can have about the magical education and higher learning.
Yeah.
Like you needed. Because I was thinking about it, was like Percy's like 20 and he's assistant to the ministry, with no other qualifications other than, having been to Hogwarts for the required amount of time. And that's another point that I had previously written out about our Potter political debate, which is how ostracizing the magical, education system is, because you do have Muggle studies, but again, we don't see a class, but that just sounds like, oh, this is what a coffee maker looks like. They're not actually So
Function of rubber band.
they're not actually studying, Muggle, current news or anything like that. So for the people who were Muggle born, they're kind of being disenfranchised from that original society. Because, Hermione graduates at 16. She can't do anything in the Muggle world. 17, whatever. And okay, she doesn't. And if you take Cursed Child as canon, spoiler alert, people, she does become whoever she becomes.
Oh, so don't say it.
Don't say it, yeah.
That's why I just like, she does become whoever
what she becomes.
She becomes an adult later on in life. Whatever.
becomes an adult. But if she wanted to be a dentist like her parents, she would have had to not just go to dental school, but also, learn maths and, I don't know, like science, because potions isn't going to do it. So, although it does seem that, like, especially for us Muggles reading this, like, why would you want to leave this awesome magical world? You just think about it as, like, Hermione doesn't spend Christmas with her family. Like, she's just always at the Burrow.
Yeah.
And we get it. It's a story, but all those things are just like, that system is in place for you to enter the wizarding world and never leave it.
Yeah, and like, look at Dean Thomas. He's a Muggle-born who really, like, he stayed very connected to his parents, seemingly, just through the narrative of the story and some plots involving him. And, like, he was constantly talking about, like, Muggle football. So seemingly he was still very involved in the Muggle world. So, like...
Exactly, but if he left, he wouldn't be able to get a job.
Yeah, but he's like an example of someone who potentially would want to integrate themselves back into the Muggle world. So it's not like there's like no one that could want to leave it, So I think that Hogwarts should be educating the students better.
If I can just cut in there for a second, I think that's interesting, and I think it's especially interesting if you think like Muggles who have been going to Hogwarts cannot like participate politically in that Muggle society, I suppose, and that kind of is a good metaphor for like that lack of education in the political sphere. So just to like kind of bring it back to the topic of like government and voting and all those things and political engagement, I think that for sure it's very terrible that they don't seem to have like government class for Muggles or for wizards. So both wizards and Muggles are like, what? How does government even work? So I think that just like stresses the importance of just like knowing about your political system and stuff even more.
Yeah, because I mean, the one thing that, if nothing else, that we need to make clear is that the Ministry of Magic is not a democracy at all. Like, whatever feelings you have about all the discussion that we're having, it is not a democracy. At no point do they vote. Several times they say that Fudge was appointed, Dumbledore has been offered the post. All of these things, nobody has been voted in, which then leads us to think, we do see Fudge interacting with the Muggle Prime Minister, but if wizards don't know what coffee is, do they vote in Muggle elections? Do they pay taxes? There's all these things about living in a society, even though you're in a separate world. They don't know how to dress like Muggles, let alone vote. So so there are not
I guess
a democracy.
No, true. But just like we could like speculate about how the wizarding system is a democracy, or like how they would vote if they had the possibility to. But I think it would also be cool to just like discuss a couple of different voting systems and things in our respective countries. Wait, did we just lose Krupa?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, wait, we lost
Carolina.
Carolina.
Oh, where did you go?
She has a link, so I'm sure she'll come back. So do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Cool, go ahead. Who has a fun fact about their system?
I have a fun fact about my system, because it is we are in the minority that Brazil has a mandatory voting, so you are required by law to vote, which is not the case in most places. Off the top of my head, I know that Australia also has that, but they have a completely different system. The only similarity is that you are required to vote. And another fun thing is that most places in the world, you have to be 18 to vote, but in Brazil, you can vote at 16, but by 18, you're required. So you can, if you're really engaged, you can go register, get your, you get like a little card that just has like your voter number, and you can from as early as 16, but you're required by 18 and onwards until 65, and you're no longer required after you're 65. But you still exactly.
So question, what happens if you are in a, like, one of the ages that is required to vote? What happens if you don't?
You pay a fine.
Okay.
And you are barred from.
Welcome back.
Oh, Carolina can't even help me out with this, but you have to pay a fine, and you are barred from other possible things. So if you want to run for public office, they will check your voting records, and if you didn't vote or pay the fine, you're not eligible for that.
Okay.
And it's not just public office. Like to get a passport, I don't know, but passport they did check. But let's say if you want to renew your ID, they do check that, and then you have to either go pay the fine or
that's that's really interesting, and that seems like within our topic of like having it be important to vote and to talk about politics and to be engaged. I think before we move on to the next country, I think it would be like interesting to talk about like, is that a good thing, or like should there be some sort of additional thing so that people actually know what they're voting for? Because it seems like if you tell everybody to vote, like they're not telling everybody to watch the news, or there seems some like possibilities for that going terribly wrong, people voting without being informed. So what do y'all think about that?
So, I mean, like everything in the world, it has its plus sides and its downsides. I personally don't like that it is mandatory, because another little caveat of that is that you register to vote in a specific place. If you're not in the place that you're registered, you have to go to another voting place and justify why you're not voting. But you can't vote regardless. So for example, I am registered to vote in São Paulo, which is a major city here. I wasn't in São Paulo for the past elections. We just had them like 2 weeks ago. I wasn't there, so I had to go to my local voting station and be like, hey, here we go, this is why I'm not voting. But I still wasn't allowed to vote where I am registered to, because I physically wasn't there. So I find that a problem, and you waste a lot of votes.
It's something like that in India too. Like you have to vote where in the same location where you're registered.
Exactly.
Although it could be different in parts of India, but I know this.
There's a lot of waste.
My mom flies to like a different city to vote there because she's registered there.
Exactly. And changing where you're registered is not exactly simple. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I lived with my parents because I was 18 and I've moved on, and that's just where I'm registered, and every year I'll just go and justify instead of actually voting, because it's far and not actually doable. But the other thing that I think is good about the mandatory process is that because everybody has to vote, our elections are always held on Sundays. So if you have a job, if your kids have schools, that shouldn't interfere with that. A lot of places you're not going to get time off, but if you do, and commerce is closed, it's a national holiday because people need to be able to go and vote. And if there's a queue, you're not expected to be back at work because you took your lunchtime to go do it.
Okay, that's something I'd really like to jump off of, because while voting is not mandatory in Canada, it is mandatory that employers allow, I think, a 3-hour window on election day for their employees to go and vote. Yeah, because I remember I was working last year during our election. I think it was on a Monday. It was definitely a weekday. And there were people that were like, okay, like going to vote, be back in half an hour or whatever. But like they technically had, like we were right by a polling station. But yeah, that was the first time I had ever learned about it. But I think it's really cool that it is law here that employers have to give their employees time to go vote. I think that is important.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have any more fun facts about voting in Canada?
You have to be.
It's like, do you have to like register, or do you get something sent in the mail, or how does it work?
In the mail and you just get your little like voter registration card kind of thing. And then when you go to vote, you have to bring a piece of photo ID, either with your current address on it, that's like that they have listed for you, or like I move around a lot because like I'm a student. So I had to bring, my ID didn't have my current address on it, so I had to bring a piece of government mail with my address on it. So that was fine. I just had my ID in a piece of mail and was like, all right, does this match? And they were like, yes, go vote. I went and voted. It was very simple here.
Awesome. I have a fun fact about Dutch election that is also a giant plug for an HPA conference. So like my country's next elections are for like the parliament. And they are, while I am not in the country, I will be in St. Louis for GLA, for the Granger Leadership Academy. So I will be using my absentee voting situation, because here you can kind of give somebody else the power to vote for you. It has to be like a partner or a close family member. So so yeah, that's what I'll be doing, and I'm excited.
Cool, that'll be fun.
Yeah. Fun fact, I was still a baby. Our last election, like our last major elections, I didn't have my voter ID yet. So I just recently got it. So I will have to vote in the next.
What is the voting age in India?
It's 18. It's 18.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it 18 everywhere else? Did everybody mention that?
Yeah. 18 here.
Is it in Argentina too, Carolina?
No, it's 16.
Nice. I wish it was 16.
But also, fun fact, we don't learn much about our political system in school. Like, we have the subject like history and civics, but the civics part is kind of, it's kind of like those theory subjects that like people don't really pay attention to, so they don't. It's not current. It's not like it's not engaging. It's like sort of textbook study answers. So people don't actually know very much unless they're like Hermione, but not to that level, of course. But to some extent, unless they're like Hermione or they're like just always watching the news or something, people don't actually know very much. In my experience, at least. Could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I wanted
brings
to.
us to. No, we're still like, I know what you're gonna say.
No, I'm not going to say that. No, actually, since you went on that, Carolina, while you jumped out a little bit, we were talking about our independent voting in political situations, and you were actually the one who told me that in Argentina you don't register to vote. You're just like as soon as you turn 16 kind of thing, right?
Sorry?
In Argentina, you don't have to get a special ID or register to vote, right? It's just like when you turn 16, you are automatically eligible. How does that work there? Do you have to bring ID? Or?
Yeah, you have to bring your ID with you, but that's it. There's a special voter registration like there is in Brazil, for example, or in the US. I know that for me, being not from Argentina, I do have to register somewhere, but before being able to vote, but there isn't a special ID for it. You just go with your regular ID.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Hogwarts. As soon as you turn 16, you're eligible to go, which is pretty cool. And it's not mandatory there, right? If I'm not mistaken, I don't think you have to vote.
Like what?
If voting is mandatory in Argentina, is Marcella's question.
Oh, yeah. You get. It's not for. I don't think it's mandatory for 16 and 17-year-olds. I think, but after you're 18, it is. But you get. You only pay like a fine or something if you don't vote. Right? I think that's what it is. Like in Brazil.
Yeah. So like it is in Brazil. Yeah, I mean, Hilda, I can go down that path if you want me to, or you can go. Because
No, you go.
I don't actually know what you think I'm gonna say.
I thought you were gonna mention the toolkit that's coming in.
Oh.
Because
Okay,
we were
so
talking about, like Krupa mentioned, not having a very accessible education about government and stuff, and I was like, but hey,
Guess what?
so you take it off from there.
Guess what?
I
yes.
totally did not make that connection. I should have.
Yeah, so we did, well, not anticipate, but we did notice that in our general lives, just talking to, everyday people and our friends, that a lot of the reasons why people don't engage in politics more is because it's this alienated thing to a lot of people. Just the word politics is so heavy, and you tend to think of men in suits just sitting in Congress, and you have all these like technical terms. So even discussing it can be a little intimidating to a lot of people if you didn't go. I mean, I have a master's in politics, and I still feel intimidated to discuss it a lot of the time. So again, it shouldn't be the thing that you need a degree to participate in. So here at the Department of International Magical Cooperation, we have created a toolkit, which we're going to be launching in this week. I don't have the exact date yet. But just about with the basics of political participation and what it should look like. And these are just random, not random, these are facts and questions that anybody should be asking themselves to consider themselves an active political actor. So, you should be able to answer the question, is voting mandatory in your country? You should be able to answer, what kind of system do you have? Even if you don't know it exactly and you're not going to draft a whole essay about it, you should be able to say, we have a president, below him we have House and Senate, and underneath that we have, here we have what would be, I don't know, city council. So, you should know at least what is the highest power within your country and what is the lowest in the political sense. So the lowest would be, who is your representative? Who is your neighborhood union, if you have one, or all that sort of things, because understanding that hierarchy does allow you to be more effective in your political participation. A lot of the things that you see in what I call ignorant political participation is, people go on Twitter and they're like, I can't believe this guy did this. I didn't vote for him, he's terrible. I was like, yes, but if you understood this, you would know that the president doesn't make laws, the Congress has to approve and pass them. So the person you should be mad at is your senator, who, all that sort of thing. So you can at least complain properly.
Yeah. Be educated about what you're complaining about.
Exactly, because, then you can say, oh, this guy who, so for example, in the States, I think, we don't have Americans here unless Matt wants to jump in, but I think in the States, senators have 6-year terms, and a lot of people don't know that because the president has a 4-year term. And then you're just like, yep, is there a cap on how often a person can run and serve? So, in Brazil, like in the US, you can only serve for 2 terms as president. I don't actually know for the other capacities, but I know there are some that don't have a limit. So you can just keep running, and if you keep getting elected, you can be there for life. So, so all those kinds of things. Exactly. So all those kinds of things that you need to be aware in order to participate effectively, not just like, oh yes, I went there and voted, but you should, when you watch a debate, you need to be able to discern it for yourself. Who won the debate, because it's very easy. If I am a liberal, I'll just turn on to the liberal channels and they say my candidate won it. If I'm a conservative, I'll turn on to the conservative channels and they'll say my candidate won it. So I need to be able to make that which is why that toolkit is important.
It also just is interesting, like how it you say like conservative or liberal or whatever, it's also just important to know which parties there are. Because like in the Netherlands, for instance, it's not a clear divide between one or the other. There's like, there's quite a few. Like there's a lot of parties, and it can be like, the focuses are just different. It's not necessarily conservative versus liberal, but it's this party goes for more like the richer people and blah, 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 less government involvement or whatever. Then there's parties that are based on religion, like there's a Christian party. There's parties that are like more socialist. There's parties that are more about the environment. We have a party for the animals. I'm not like, it sounds like I'm making that up, but that's actually true. So like we don't have those kinds of parties. We just have parties that, you know, connect to a specific theme. And I think it's also just like important to know like what the like distinction is in your country between the different people and the different opinions, and kind of how like it's not always necessarily conservative or liberal.
Yeah, and I
in
think
India
it's
too,
also
like we don't have specific liberal conservative. We have just like a whole bunch of parties that represent different ideals or different philosophies.
yeah.
Here too.
Like, I think it's just also really important to research the different political parties, because I think people get so hung up on like who is running, you know, and they're like, oh well, I like this person or I don't like this person, but it's not about, you know, the person. It's about the party that they're running for. Like it's not just what this one person is specifically going to do. It's about the values that their party has. So I think that's something that people tend to overlook, or even if, you know, like if they, like Marcel was saying, if they do go on and they're like, oh, you know, like, oh, this guy, like, I didn't vote for him to do this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, actually, that is what the party does. So you did vote for that? Yeah, just like, I think it's important to look at the whole party that you're voting for, not just the person.
Yeah, I mean, that is a little different depending on the kind of system that you have, because some systems are more party heavy, like Canada and the UK. So systems that tend to have, if a good way to think about that is if you have a prime minister instead of a president, you tend to have a more party heavy politics.
Yeah.
It's not the case for anybody. This is just a good rule of thumb. But, you know, so for example, in Brazil, we do have a lot of parties, but we have a presidential system. So our elected president, which was Dilma, who has recently been impeached, her running mate was not from her party. And that is allowed, and that is a thing. So what Hilda was saying is even, both what Hilda and Maggie were saying is even more important to research the parties and their ideologies, because it is so divided, you do have parties that come together because they have similar takes on policies. So you know, all those things are important to know. So if you're going to vote for somebody, it's really important to know who their VP is, if it is a president, if it's in a presidential case. Because, you know, they are a major part of that person's campaign.
Yeah. Here in Argentina, it gets pretty complicated as well, because like you guys said, in a lot of your countries, there isn't really a conservative and liberal. There are just a whole bunch of parties, but a lot of them, they don't really have a very defined ideology, and it just changes over time. And also there are a lot of coalitions and they come together. There's a lot of this kind of individualism, which is opposite from what Maggie was saying here, that the ideologies are built around a specific person. And we talk a lot about macrismo and cristianismo, and it's all these complete ideologies that are just based on this one person that was running, and it's really different from whatever party they're associated with, and they're like 1,000 offshoots from Peronismo, which is more from like more historic, but there are like 1 million offshoots from that, so there isn't really a defined definition. Peronismo is like the biggest ideology that there is here in Argentina, but there isn't really even a definition of what that means, because it just means so many different things to so many different people. So it really gets
more like complicated.
Confusing, I would imagine.
No, but like I assume that if you're in it, like people within Argentina probably understand all the nuances, or like they understand what they mean by those words.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like from an outsider's perspective, it sounds like, how could you ever know what anything is?
I mean, even from an insider's perspective, sometimes, again, going back to our formal education, not completing that for us, one of the things that I found myself constantly debating when I live in the US is people being like, oh, that's socialism. And I'm like, no, it isn't. You don't understand what socialism is, so you're just going to throw that out at anything that you think is bad. I'm not saying socialism is good or bad. I'm just saying that, people just hear these key terms and then they're like, oh, okay, so socialism equals bad, and therefore if said politician did something I don't like, is therefore socialism. So, I'm not sure how the case is in Argentina, but in Brazil we do have that a lot, is that we have one major media outlet, and let's say 90% of media outlet here is controlled by this one organization, which is Globo, and they tend to be lean right. So, the news and everything that everybody is consuming, even entertainment, does have that, it does lean that way. So if you're not going out and looking for other sources of news and things like that, you do start to just hear these keywords, and then you throw them out in relation to the things that you agree or don't, even though you don't necessarily know what that term means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really important point to make, because now that you say that, I think even with the term conservative, that could mean something very different in different countries. Like, I know in Canada, our conservatives would probably be considered Democrats in the States. So, or close to it, like much more of a middle ground than being considered Republicans. So just I think these different terms can have different meanings country to country, or political system to political system, even though they're the same. As well as just, how important it is to know what they mean before you just throw them out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the political spectrum. Each place has its own. Because, like, I'm very certain that the most radical conservative in the Netherlands, in the United States, would be, like, way hardcore, like, communist. They would be like, you are beyond, Bernie Sanders, you are hardcore commie and whatever. And in the Netherlands, she's like, no, this guy is it's like so conservative.
Yeah.
So the political spectrum doesn't exactly overlap.
Yeah.
From place to place.
And also just like about the whole thing of government education, or like politics education. I just wanted to throw in the question to all y'all in this hangout, but also just people on Twitter or in the YouTube comments, like what government or society education was like in your country, or is like if you're still in school. Because I know that I didn't have government as a subject until I was about 15, which seems very late to me.
It is, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was like 14 or 15, and like they should have that stuff from like elementary school.
Yeah.
Of course, like you like vaguely know that we have a prime minister, and I know, or like at the time, I knew that he looked like Harry Potter, which he did. And it's just like,
my book.
yeah, you can look him up, former prime ministers of the Netherlands. But yeah, so I think that was very late. But then that was in high school that we finally got kind of this is how like the government is built. You have like a prime minister, you have representatives, and you have the Senate, and you have this is how a bill gets passed, and all those things are really important to know if you ever are like as a citizen of your society are like, I don't want that bill to get passed, but I don't know how to stop it, so like that was the kind of education that I was given. So I was curious what that was like in other places.
Anybody want to go first?
Yeah, it was something like that for me too here, because for us it started pretty late, not 15, but I think around the 5th or 6th grade, around that time they introduced this subject, civics. So it just sort of explains theoretically what goes on, but it's not that interactive like I previously mentioned. So I didn't know anything relevant until I started my first year of college, where we have this Constitution of India and professional ethics. That's where I started to realize that there's something that I can do, and it's not just something that happens up there with the adults and the like people in suits or whatever. It's like something personal that everyone's involved in. So I didn't internalize that until like I was 19, 18 or 19, which is past the voting age, which is way too late. Yeah, that's
Carolina, you were gonna
it
say
might not apply to everyone, but yeah, that's what I faced.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that's probably a big hole, I think, in my education, just because I had a very kind of different upbringing. I didn't live the whole time in one country. I moved around a lot. So I never really got a civics education from any particular country. I think it was more like as I was learning history from a particular country, particular thing, then that became involved, and I kind of learned from that. But I never took any kind of civics class or anything specific like that until really, I guess, until college, when my college was very very oriented towards international relations and active citizenship. So that's where I really got a lot of that information. So so that in my education, but not specifically a problem, I guess, with any one system. Just, I guess I just didn't stay long enough, maybe, in different countries to have.
Yeah. So, I mean, my case is similar. I also was educated in different countries. So, and I also don't remember ever having, actually I do. The first time I had like a figure of a teacher with, on the board being like, this is how the system works, was actually during my master's degree. And that's because, it was in politics, and we weren't doing like a specific one, but because my master's was in politics, we were just going over the different political systems. At no point did we go deep into the country that I was in or the country that everybody else in my class was from. But that was the first time that I formally was taught how the political system works. Other than that, I just kind of picked it up because it was in my natural interest, and I was like naturally curious about that. But I don't, even in classes in high school and middle school, I don't remember having, somebody sit there and be like, president, and then below them is, the parliament and whatever. Like I never had that until I was getting my master's degree.
Wow. Yeah, it was kind of similar. It was kind of similar in Canada. Like, we had a social studies class that was pretty government heavy. Like, we would just do like different modules. So we definitely learned about like the major political parties of Canada and how our political system works. But then it was always kind of like, it was never the full class. It was just part of the class. And then we would learn more in Canadian history. And then when I got to high school, you could take government classes, but they weren't mandatory. They were just like optional ones that you could take if you wanted to. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be better if they were mandatory, but yeah. So,
I mean, Matt raised an interesting point on the chat on the YouTube live stream that it depends on the teacher and how interested they are in teaching the subject. So
that's true.
Yeah, like you can't have someone like Professor Binns trying to explain how the system works.
Yes, that's true.
Or you can have a Remus Lupin.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Particularly something that already has such
they don't have
boring.
That at Hogwarts.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, the connection kind of got a little shaky, so I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties, so I apologize for interrupting people, but I hear everybody kind of shaky. So what I was just saying is that I don't remember hearing anything about any kind of government or civics class at Hogwarts.
Yeah. No,
No, I don't think there
Not at
was
all.
one.
which is again goes back to the
And
point, like
Like maybe
how
history of
does the
magic
history
has.
work? Well, no, and that's the other thing. In
Yeah.
Ministry of Magic, they just kept talking about like things from thousands of years ago. So
Yeah.
by the time that they're 17, they
Yeah.
were maybe in the like 1700s. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But one thing that I'm just going to go on like a small little tangent, but just because
Okay.
Maggie mentioned, how she learned a lot about it in like Canadian history, and you learn about the political systems in Canadian history, is always that thing that we need to always be conscious that history is told from the side of the winner. So, it was very Canadian centered, but if that class was being taught, in a First Nations reservation, it would be a completely different class. So one thing that I actually found interesting in the Hogwarts classes is that, they were always talking about the other peoples, and they were talking, Harry hated it. He was like, who cares about the giant wars? And I'm like, I don't know,
Yeah.
giants. And, you share the space with them, therefore you should care too. So that was one thing that I found my education didn't do, but Hogwarts did focus on the goblins and the giants, at least in the history department.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, it's important because if you're being political, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. And in politics, as much as we like to think is like just voting and things, history is a political thing. What you bought, if you bought this brand of pasta as opposed to the other one, that is a political act. So, your history is also a political act. And then all of those things do go hand in hand.
Yeah, and like with that.
Yeah, so that was an excellent tangent. That was awesome.
And a good
Um,
segue.
so-
Yeah, it's a good point for a segue.
So hold up. Yeah, so it's important to know like how your actions kind of impact, or how your actions can be political. And it's not even just voting. Like, voting is not the only political act you can do. Voting is not the only way to participate. And we've seen that in Argentina and Brazil, the voting age is 16. But like everywhere else we've heard so far, it's like 18. So if you're under voting age, or if you're under 16 in Argentina or Brazil, or whatever the age is where you are, like there should still be ways to participate. So I wanted to talk about some non-voting ways to participate, if that's cool with y'all.
Yeah.
Yes. And we will have a good outline of that in the toolkit, so do keep an eye out for
Yes, the toolkit will have all that.
But
It's also beautiful. Thanks for
And
that.
multiple
It is
Griffin designed it. It's awesome.
It's so pretty.
and in multiple languages. That is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we should mention that when it gets released, it will initially be released in 3 languages, but more are to follow as well.
So non-voting actions. And so I'm going to put this here, non-voting and beyond voting, because a lot of these are like, yes, you can go cast your vote, but something else that you can do is see if anybody in your area is also going to vote, pick them up, everybody go. Because, some people might maybe their polling station is really far, so just by giving them a ride, that's already a good...
Being the night bus. Yep.
Yes, be the night bus. That's a good way to participate beyond just casting your own ballot.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Another way of voting. Yep, go ahead, Hilda.
no, you go ahead. I was gonna say, Marcella, you know more about this than I do. Then, so
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. So another way of participating is, vote with your money. You can go from the very clear point of donating to a candidate or to a party, but you can also support the brands that are supporting the things that you support. So buy fair trade, buy organic, buy local. Those are all ways in which you are affecting the political climate of your community without actually having to vote or actually wait for an election. You do have that. You do have that power every single day, every single time that you go to a shop. You are making a choice between a brand that is, politically active or whatever. And whatever it is, the policy that you agree or don't, you should kind of find out a little bit more. It is daunting, and it is complicated because organizations are owned by other things. But like if you're in doubt, a quick Google will tell you if Johnson's tests their products on animals, all that kind of stuff. Like, you can be conscious about the things that you are purchasing. Exactly.
There are websites that tell you if animal testing is done like in a particular brand or something. And another important thing is, if you come across any media like our toolkit that that like helps you understand more about the system, then share it with other people.
Yes.
So that they know, because I didn't know anything until we started making this toolkit. So
Yeah, we all learned a lot from Marcella.
Yeah.
Yes, putting that master's to good use.
It can take any form and any level, I guess, that you want. You don't have to feel like you need to do giant campaigns or like change the world or anything to be politically active. Just the fact of staying informed and trying to make informed decisions, that's what act, I think, and volunteering, or even just helping out in your neighborhood, helping people. I feel like that's a whole, that's a feeling of caring about your community and about the people that are in it, that I think is a precursor to any kind of political engagement. So you can think about what are the things that you care about, like you guys were saying, whether it's climate change or animal LGBTQ rights or whatever. Find out what's going on in your neighborhood that you might want to get involved with, and you don't have to dedicate all of your extra time to it, but there are a few things that you can do that can really make a difference for people.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, a really good example of that is like, so Janae is our chapter's director, and she is holding the flag of non-waste, what is it?
Non-voting waste of participation.
Yeah.
No, waste-free.
Waste-free, zero waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero waste. There you go. She holds it
yeah.
really high, and that is a major form of participation, and it is something she's passionate about. So the things that she does every day is, did I bring, a reusable bag? Did I, like, how much trash? And, you don't have to be extreme about it, but if, you drink something, you're like, let me recycle this, that is already a political act. All the small actions of everyday things do count, and they do add up.
Yeah. And like by sharing that, she's also making other people aware of it. Like, I didn't know about the zero waste thing, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about it until they saw someone else sharing that information. So
yeah, and it doesn't have to be zero waste. It can be anything that you're passionate about. Like, just within the HPA, just by being part of the HPA, I have just like been exposed to so many more like issues and just different things that are going on in places, or different methods of thoughts that maybe you would otherwise, or like I would otherwise never have thought to question. So I guess just like being being informed doesn't have to be like reading the newspaper, like, I don't know, you saw maybe your parents doing when you were little, like, because that is like such a, like, not, you can also just go like online, or I don't know, Tumblr is a good source for things sometimes if you check it. And, it doesn't have to be like the old media. It can be, any sort of way that you find engaging. It doesn't, like, I think a lot of the time.
Also, just a side note, if you're getting your information online, please make sure that it's a reliable source and not just
check it 1,000 times.
Yeah, look for like other articles to like back it up.
Yeah.
Or even just like look who the author is, like see who wrote it. And that's the thing too, like fact checking your sources is also a political act, and is also a way of engaging, that it goes past just, seeing something on TV, it goes into a little more engagement and deeper thought into it. So,
and that's just a good practice
I think that's
to
good for
have
sure.
in life. Just fact.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody
yeah.
should have really fact checked Rita Skeeter, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know. No one was fact checking.
Yes.
That's terrible, terrible journalism.
Yeah, I mean, and ironically,
I'm the quibbler.
but that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Krupa. Because ironically, the only time Rita Skeeter wrote something that was, true and fact, she published it in the Quibbler. So even if you do see something that's like, oh, the Wall Street Journal, do think about the political aspirations of that media outlet, because everything does have a political leaning, even if they're not saying, oh, vote for this guy or vote for that guy. Everything, the news that you get, it is tailored based on the audience that they have. So two things to be aware of is of bias. You can have confirmation bias, because on the internet you can find anything to confirm the things you already believe. So challenge yourself as well. I can type in the most absurd thing. I can type in, that whatever, that we're all living upside down, and I will find sources that will
I can tell you a source right
the world is flat. Yeah.
The Flat World Society. Have you guys heard of that?
Yes.
Exactly. So be aware of confirmation bias. So challenge your own ideas and your own assumptions, but also be aware of the bias of the source that you're getting, because nothing is actually neutral. So if you favor a liberal, if you favor liberal media, do keep in mind that, okay, this is liberal. I'm not saying go and read the other one. You should, but at least you keep in mind, like, okay, they're saying this, it can't be that amazing. They do have their own agenda to push. So these are two things that make you a conscious person taking in the news. And especially today, you have YouTube, you have podcasts, you have Tumblr, you have Twitter that you can get your news from. So getting away from clickbait culture and just reading the title. And just kind of
like first blurb that says what the article is about.
Exactly.
Get away from that.
That goes back to the self-care thing we were talking about, because we have all these sorts of media. On one hand, they're all competing with a much larger, in a much larger stage for your attention. But at the same time, they do also have more leniency, because you don't have to believe in the 2 newspapers that are published in your town. You can go online and find out more about that one thing, or the other things. So for the self-care things, you can be like, oh, look at this terrible thing that happened, but I went online and I found out that there's this company that is donating all their proceeds to help out X, or any other form of way that you can be aware of what's going on. Be awoke, which is one of my favorite sayings. It's one of my favorite sayings. Just be woke. Stay woke.
Yeah, and also just I feel like about sources and about news, as the global department, we should mention that you should also kind of see if you can find sources from different places around the world. That you don't just have the information from whatever place you are in, however large of a scale you want to see that on, from town to country, but also just be able to place your own government and your own situation into a global context. So that what goes on elsewhere as well. So that's I think an important one.
Yeah.
And there are international sources that cover specific. I know that for a fact that there was a lot of many other countries that were covering the Indian elections as the largest elections in history or something, because we have such a huge population. So there were non-Indian sources also covering that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, people do cover that. So you don't need to know French to hear about what's happening, with, the refugee camp that blew up in France, and now all the refugees are in Paris. Like, you can read that in English, you can read that in Portuguese. I have seen things in Spanish about it. So your language will most likely have an outlet that covers it. And again, it's media, it's capitalism. They're all turning based on audience. So the more people that read about it, the more people that comment on that, there will be more news of that sort.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're close to wrapping this up, if I am correct, looking at my co-people. So I thought it would be fun to, because Marcella, you started in the beginning talking about the broader political debate, and that we have some questions prepared that I think would be funny to talk about just as like an end, as like a wrap-up game, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So I really like the question of, hold on, where is it? I can't. Either of you, or like, I can't find it right now. But while I find it, please talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
I love talking about if wizards pay taxes, because as we were talking about the other day, Marcella, who pays the where do the salaries come from at the Ministry of Magic? Where's that money coming from? And also, like, I know they don't have public transport the way that, like, we have public transport, but, like, the Flu Powder Network, that's got to take some money to run, right? Like,
I think you have to buy flu powder. So it's kind of like that.
So
probably need to write.
That was awesome. I did not follow anything you were saying, so I don't know if I'm segueing or just completely changing the topic.
Hold on, sorry, Carolina was saying something and I missed it.
Okay, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying that the Flu Network probably needs some regulations as well about which fireplaces people can go into and not.
Yeah, like Umbridge's fireplace.
Yeah, can someone just walk into my home?
The Dursleys.
Well, no, you have to be connected, and there is a Department of Magical Transportation. Mm-hmm. So, even taking flu powder is a political act. Okay. But it is, because that's the thing. It is, okay, you're laughing because it's Harry Potter, but if you think about it, in Brazil, a couple of years ago, we had major strikes because they wanted to raise the price of buses, the bus fare. And people went insane because, they were charging more, but the service didn't get better. So you were still stuffing traffic. You would still have, there weren't, how do you say make it bigger? They weren't increasing the fleet. You were still stuck in traffic. The buses weren't themselves better. So, there was no ace, they didn't have new buses that had, organic fuel. No, it was the exact same thing. They just wanted people to pay more. So it is a thing. Like, even the transportation that you take is a form of political act. Choosing to ride a bike is not in the Netherlands because that's just how you get around. But choosing to ride a bike can be a protest against, price of gas and against, climate change and pollutions that cars create.
Fossil fuels.
All that sort of thing.
There's actually like a thing that goes around Tumblr. That is like two pictures. One is like I don't know, maybe it was Obama or some other like head of state that like arrived at wherever they were going. I don't think it was Obama. It was like some president of some sort.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Like arrives in like this super like luxurious car and like beautiful and whatever. And then the picture below it was like of the Dutch prime minister who arrived at the place where he works on his bicycle. And it was just like, of course, like, but of course, like that's not a fair comparison because Obama needs a heck of a lot more security. But anyway.
Well, but not even that. Not even just he needs more security, but the infrastructure in the U.S. doesn't tend to
like it does. Fun fact.
That is an interesting thing because so in São Paulo, which is a major city, and we have a lot of traffic problems, people started using more bikes, which did leave the city to create more bike lanes. They were like, okay, people keep dying. We need to have, they're not going to stop riding their bikes. Therefore, we need to make it safe for them to do so. So see, that does increase change, and that does create that possibility.
Everything is a political act, if you think of it. But yeah,
we were segueing, and the segue sort of took another
Yeah,
segue.
I was. Yeah, we ended up somewhere, and that was awesome too. But the question that I was looking for initially and then found was about, because we're talking about democracy and in Harry Potter, to end it on a fun note, though I guess this is a pretty dark topic within Harry Potter.
I know exactly where you're going.
That Dumbledore is both the person who runs the most influential school in the country. I don't know, there probably isn't another wizarding school, but people can be homeschooled or whatever. So runs the most important school in the country, so has power over future generations essentially. Also is the head of the Wizengamot, which is I think comparable to the UN of some sorts.
No, it's like the Supreme Court.
Or no, wait, that is. Yeah, that's the Supreme Court, and then there's also the Wizard UN that he's kind of in charge of. So that seems bad.
too
one
many
person.
jobs.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Not even
discuss.
too many jobs. So I love this question. This is my favorite question of the Potter political debate. And yes, so Dumbledore is every dictator's dream. That is what you want as a dictator. You want to control education. You want to control the government. What else does he do? You want to control the courts. Then you're good. You're all set. So which in his defense, or I guess in the Wizarding world's defense, it's pretty good that they got the whole world against him because he's so influential. He could have shut all of that down very early on. And I'm not saying that the people that were against him were right, but the fact that existed does speak loads about I forgot the word.
Power distribution.
No, but just when you express yourself, what's that called? Freedom of expression and your civic liberties. Because there are countries in the world today that it is a very, very big risk to speak out against somebody that has power like Dumbledore. There's several places in the world that if you printed what the Daily Prophet was printing about Dumbledore, the Daily Prophet is different because it is controlled by the government. But if people talked about several people alive today, the way that the Prophet and Seamus Finnegan was talking about Dumbledore, they can be executed. They would just disappear. So that does speak highly of the civic liberties in the Wizarding world. But at the same time, one person should not have that much power.
Yeah. But then sort of taking the Hufflepuff stand on this is if a person has that kind of power, it's good that it's someone like Dumbledore who's aware of his own
Well,
no, I mean, see, I prefaced it with taking a Hufflepuff stand.
Yeah, no, it could be worse. Is a good Hufflepuff
Yeah, it could
stand.
be a lot worse. Yeah. If there's a dictator, at least it's a somewhat, acceptable. Not acceptable, but
be a dictator.
Yeah, there should. I agree with that. Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't agree with that. Because, you know what, it couldn't be worse because we're all reading the novels from the point of view of Harry, who is this amazing, hero, and we want, Dumbledore is presented like the hero figure. But if you think about it, and again, this is an extreme example, but I'm pretty sure the Malfoys were not thinking that it could get worse. And I'm not saying, we're all Death Eaters, but I'm saying, in the world that we live in, there are people who are on a different side of the political spectrum. So think about it. If you support one party, but the party that you don't support has this much power, that's not necessarily good for you, even though that person you could be completely wrong in your views, but those are your views and your political stance. So, again, they're Death Eaters, and it's a story, so it is fictionalized, so they're actual bad guys. But if you think about it, the opposition is not happy that somebody has that much power, and the opposition always have a point. I don't think people aren't inherently bad. You don't wake up and you're like, how am I going to make the world a bad place? Everybody thinks that they're right. Everybody can talk themselves into thinking that what they do is the right thing. So while Dumbledore could do that too.
Right.
Well, Dumbledore can do that too.
Yeah.
You know, on the other side, the people that opposed him also didn't think they were wrong. You know, again, they are fictionalized versions, but the people who voted for a different person that you voted for, they're not like, oh, I'm voting for this guy because I hate poor people, or I'm voting for this guy because I want whatever. You know, they're voting because you tend to vote with the things that you like. You're voting for things as opposed to against other things. So yeah, so that's the problem with Dumbledore. He's just one guy.
In conclusion,
and let's talk about logistics. Who has the time to do that? Like,
He has a time turner.
Probably.
But still, that sounds like, it's no wonder that, you know, Sirius and Hagrid
ancient.
didn't get a trial, because Dumbledore was probably busy, you know, running a school.
Well, he doesn't.
Yeah,
what does
like
he
when
actually
Harry
do
needed
in
him and he
Hogwarts?
was like somewhere else. When he was needed as a headmaster, but he was off doing the Zangamorph things.
Exactly.
honestly-
Harry,
He doesn't
Yeah,
teach.
he would
McGonagall
leave
does his correspondence. What does Dumbledore even do at Hogwarts? But you know,
he hires teachers.
yeah, there you go.
And he meddles in students' life.
So
You know, but sorry, just to go back to my other point. So the Malfoys were a bad example because they're actually bad people. But you see, that in Order of the Phoenix, so Dumbledore has all this power and everything. So the people who oppose him, the Ministry, when they take all his power away, they take it from themselves. So you see Harry, Ron, and Hermione being like, "This is terrible. Look how awful they are. They're passing all these like educational degrees. They changed, you know, they can fire teachers left and right. They can decide who has the right to come and go. So all these things. So literally what they did is they took Dumbledore's powers and used it. So that is a great example of how, you know, concentration of power is a bad thing. You need checks and balances.
Yes.
Even when Dumbledore was still there, Umbridge was just passing educational decrees left and right. And there was nothing. Like, Fudge just signs a paper and it's therefore law.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I think you did a very good job of like making it clear that you were not saying the Death Eaters should have like been in charge. Very good.
people
And
on
there
the
was also
internet.
just a good point for
People in the comments like, who is this Marcella girl? Why did she want Voldemort to win?
hold on, I'll be right
Surprise Dutch. My favorite.
Oh,
Hilda
bye
Edward.
then.
Yeah.
Hi, Hilda. She checked out for that. But yeah, that's a really good point to make. And I see how, you know, it's a struggle to make that point because everyone's like, well, Dumbledore's the good guy. Like, he's doing it right. But no, like, once the Ministry took some of his power
Who
away,
decides what's
it
right?
was really horrible for everyone involved. So the bottom line is no one should have that much power. No one person should be in control of that much power.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Yeah. And no one person should decide who should be in charge of that much power.
Exactly.
Like, even if they themselves are not in charge, like, there shouldn't be like just like 5 people select one person and they're like, okay, you are in charge.
True.
You are the one.
Also, Carolina maybe can help me. I don't exactly remember who said this, but it is a phrase that we're always throwing around if you're studying politics in like an academic setting. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is, you know, that's it. Anybody with absolute, and the more power you have, the more power you want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who said that, so that's, I'm going to Google it real quick.
Me neither.
John Emmerich Edward Dalberg, Acton.
There you go.
Am I right?
That's what I said.
I don't know how to pronounce like 4 out of 5 of those names.
Yeah. You can just say Baron
names.
Acton.
Okay.
Okay, what did I miss?
Fact checking.
Sorry. Okay, cool.
We just fact checked myself.
A good practice to have.
Indeed.
Examples of non-voting actions.
No, I just finished my Dumbledore rant with Baron
And possibly convinced like the whole world.
Yeah, with
That was a good
which
rant.
is absolute power
That's
corrupts.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Decimated my Hufflepuff points of view. But that's okay, I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a good conclusion then.
Good
So
place
does
to end
anybody
on.
have? Yeah, I was gonna say, does anybody have any closing remarks before we sign off?
Nope. I just want to thank everybody that is here and is watching. This was an
Yeah.
awesome discussion. And for the people that are watching, the HPA did a couple of trainings on political things, so voter disenfranchisement, voter registration. They tend to be a little U.S. focused, but they do apply to several other cases. And you know, you can take the lessons that you want from them. So on the HPA website, you can find all those trainings done. Those are all really important. And again, interesting ways to inform yourself. You don't have to read a boring text from the 1500s. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and
Yes,
one
thank
thing
you so
that
much.
is,
Thanks, Carolina, especially.
no, just,
Yes.
One thing I want to get to though is find ways for anyone who's watching it now, and also anyone who will watch this video later and hopefully reached this point of the video, to find like how you can make politics personal to you. So what does it mean to you, and like how would you define like politics and political action? So like sort of that's
Cool.
just encourage you to
For
make
sure.
it personal to yourself and not just a thing that you see on TV or in the papers or anything.
That's awesome.
Well
I
said.
think the last thing we should do is plug the toolkit one more time. So that's coming up, and you will get it from, like, it will be on the HPA's socials and stuff, but you will also get it from your liaison, because that's us. So I think, yes. Thanks, everybody. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep the
See you
discussion
next
going.
This is
on Twitter
fun.
and
Yeah, keep the
Thanks,
discussion going.
Yes.
That's important.
for sure.
Like whenever, if you see this video in like 5 years and you want to still use the hashtag, like go wild.
Go
We'll
on.
check it every once in a while. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is
We'll
the
just
global
talk global HPA.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the global HPA, so this hashtag is monitored, for lack of a better term. So, you know, we are aware of it, and then if you didn't get a chance
There
to
will
watch
be
it,
other random stuff floating forward.
we'll do our best to get it.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
This would
everybody.
make a good concluding point at exactly 1.5 hours, which is good.
Oh God, that was so well timed. That was so well timed.
I'm proud of us. I think we should be proud.
Okay, I think, Matt, can you take us off the thing? I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to stop it now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.